is the most powerful hurricane ever to hit the Florida Panhandle. It's like a buzzsaw, leaving a trail of destruction in its wake. The storm unexpectedly exploded in power to a Category 4 overnight. Storm chaser Reed Timmer.
And you can truly feel the power of this Category 4 hurricane out here.
Roofs were torn off buildings like they were strips of cardboard, and shingles and other loose debris rained down.
The Lord took me to the Gulf of Mexico, and He showed me all the beaches around the Gulf of Mexico and the sexual sin, immorality, as you run from the edges of Florida this way, going all the way through Louisiana, down into Mexico itself. And the Lord, He asked me to speak forth a judgment over those cities that line up the Gulf of Mexico. Then I saw another storm gather like a hurricane, and I saw it storm those cities of sexual sin, immorality, and utter godlessness. I have seen the judgment of the Lord according to the words of my tongue. Strictly according to the words of my tongue, I have seen now a storm against on the Atlantic coming out.
As Hurricane Michael nears landfall, we are working with state and local officials in Florida to take all necessary precautions, and we urge all residents to be prepared and to heed local officials. We have already briefed FEMA, and FEMA's getting prepared, and it looks like a big one. Can you believe it? It looks like another big one. Never ends. But we're all prepared, and hopefully it won't be as bad as it's looking. It looked to me, a couple of days ago like it was not going to be much, and now it's looking like it could be a very big one.
We urge everyone in the path of Hurricane Michael to stay off the water, stay off the beaches, and heed all safety messages and evacuation orders from state and local authorities.
Good morning. Unfortunately, Hurricane Michael is a hurricane of the worst kind. There's nothing else that can be said about it. We're looking at 145-mile-an-hour sustained winds. It could possibly get stronger. Major hurricanes cause large losses of life and the most amount of destruction that hurricanes can bring forward. So unfortunately, the window to evacuate is coming to a close.
Counties are now under a state of emergency, with Michael expected to make landfall in the Panhandle this week. Citrus County canceling school for at least tomorrow and Wednesday. And immediate mandatory evacuations are in effect for people living in Zone A, mobile homes, and RVs. Meanwhile, Hernando issuing a voluntary evacuation order for coastal zone levels A and B starting tomorrow at 8 a.m.
Traffic slowed to a crawl on this coastal highway in Panama City Beach. Many trying to heed Florida Governor Rick Scott's warning to get out now before it's too late.
These cars leaving Panama City Beach stuck in bumper-to-bumper traffic for miles, getting a head start on what is now a mandatory evacuation. And then there are these residents in Tallahassee and a line of cars around the block at gas stations waiting hours for fuel.
In Cedar Key, the emergency siren warns residents to leave by 8 p.m. tonight. Hundreds of thousands of people living near the shore have been ordered to evacuate.
Florida residents are evacuating as Hurricane Michael approaches the Panhandle.
People are racing to escape Panama City, where the hurricane is expected to make landfall. Traffic has been building up since Monday, ahead of this morning's mandatory evacuation.
These cars leaving Panama City Beach stuck in bumper-to-bumper traffic for miles, getting a head start on what is now a mandatory evacuation.
Let me be clear, Hurricane Michael is a monstrous storm, and the forecast keeps getting more dangerous. We are now just hours away from seeing impacts.
Now, unfortunately, there are going to be places that get more than 6 feet of storm surge flooding. Imagine this, 9 feet and even beyond of flooding, of inundation. This is practically not survivable. So please follow the advice of your local officials when they ask you to evacuate.
Boarding up. You know, this one's coming pretty close, so got a little nervous.
This is an NBC News special report.
It's the most powerful hurricane ever to hit the Florida Panhandle. It's like a buzzsaw, leaving a trail of destruction in its wake. The storm unexpectedly exploded in power to a Category 4 overnight. Storm chaser Reed Timmer.
And you can truly feel the power of this Category 4 hurricane out here.
Roofs were torn off buildings like they were strips of cardboard, and shingles and other loose debris rained down.
It's the strongest storm ever recorded on the Florida Panhandle, with sustained winds of 155 miles an hour and the strongest anywhere on the U.S. mainland in nearly 50 years. Hurricane Michael blasted its way onto the Florida coast today and rapidly moved inland.
This is Hurricane Michael barreling ashore in Panama City Beach. The winds ripping the roof right off this building. And this one too, the roof lifting up and tearing off, slamming to the ground. This region had never endured a Category 4 hurricane before.
It's not the Category 4 hurricane!
We were on the air right as the outer eye wall approached us.
This hurricane is about to make landfall, again, not far from where we are right now. I want to show you behind me some of the damage it's already done. You can see the trees here. One of them has already come down behind us.
The winds 155 miles per hour as the hurricane made landfall. Tonight, the stunning scope of the waves crashing ashore at St. Andrews Bay. The National Weather Service buoy recording waves higher than 30 feet before landfall. Before that buoy simply stopped working. Power lines down tonight, transformers bursting behind us.
Whoa, we're getting, do you see that?
Just before part of the hotel roof collapses, right in front of us all.
It's gonna go. You can see the roof of the hotel that we had been standing out there. That was the shelter for a Category 4 hurricane. That has now come down on those SUVs.
Then the windows shatter.
Hurricane Michael is on the move. After slamming into the Florida Panhandle, the most powerful storm on record to make landfall here. In Mexico Beach, Florida, destruction. Homes submerged and in pieces. Streets like rivers. Nearby Panama City Beach, a house ripped apart by the hurricane force winds, windows shattered, buildings collapsed, and boats overturned.
Communities are going to see unimaginable devastation.
Michael rapidly intensified overnight into a monster Category 4 hurricane, eventually reaching sustained winds of 155 miles per hour.
This used to be my backport.
The wind and water so powerful they trapped a storm chaser. Alabama and Georgia also under states of emergency. The ominous eye clearly visible from the space station. In Apalachicola, Florida, the rain began overnight as Michael's outer bands battered the Gulf Coast.
By dawn, the wind and the rain picked up and the water started to rise, forcing us to move to higher ground.
A massive storm surge flooded part of this historic downtown.
Kate, we're seeing the raw power of Hurricane Michael. Just within the past hour or so, we have seen the winds intensify significantly. As you can see behind me, parts of this town are completely underwater.
There are massive trees toppled throughout the region, making it nearly impossible to get around. Here in Florida, a man died when a tree fell on his home, and emergency management officials say that up in Georgia, an 11-year-old child died. This was a fast-moving storm that showed little mercy.
This morning, Hurricane Michael's devastation is on display after the ferocious Category 4 storm slammed into the Florida Panhandle, the most powerful hurricane on record here.
I won't go through another one. I'd leave the next time.
Michael packed maximum sustained winds of 155 miles per hour. Mexico Beach took a direct hit. Homes there underwater, many in pieces. Streets turning into raging rivers. And in historic Apalachicola, a 7-foot storm surge.
We're seeing the raw power of Hurricane Michael. Just within the past hour or so, we have seen the winds intensify significantly. As you can see behind me, parts of this town are completely underwater.
Further west in Panama City Beach, the howling winds ripped this home apart. Further inland, a middle school gym barely standing. This drone video showing what it looks like on the inside. Michael also blowing out bank windows and impaling this car with debris. for this region an unprecedented storm.
Slamming into Florida's Panhandle region, Hurricane Michael came ashore as the most powerful storm in more than a century. When it made landfall, roofs were ripped off, trees downed, and coastal flooding left many homes and businesses submerged.
And he showed me all the beaches around the Gulf of Mexico. And I saw it storm those cities of sexual sin, immorality, and utter godlessness. I have seen the judgment of the Lord according to the words of my tongue. Strictly according to the words of my tongue, I have seen now a storm against on the Atlantic coming out.
This is how Hurricane Michael looked at sea.
Punishing scene that we witnessed and one those families will never forget. This is the hotel where we were reporting from all day today and where so many of those families sought shelter, and I want to show you what's left of it tonight. Take a look over my shoulder here. You can see a huge part of the roof came crashing down during the hurricane right in front of our eyes and in front of so many of those families. So many of the windows are blown out tonight. Hurricane Michael is the strongest hurricane to hit the U.S. since 1969. Slamming ashore just before 1 o'clock this afternoon, winds of 155 miles an hour. It was massive and just shy of a Category 5 hurricane.
was only today when so many of the people who live here realized the true extent of the destruction, the devastation left behind by this historic hurricane. Never before have they endured a Category 4 hurricane, and keep in mind, this was nearly a Category 5. And tonight we have just landed after flying in a Black Hawk over the worst hit area, Mexico Beach. The moment you come upon that beach community from the air, you can see it. Homes wiped off the earth, some sitting in the middle of the street, buildings with their rooftops gone. And remember, that's right near where it made landfall, 155 miles per hour. And right here in Panama City tonight, much of the Jinx Middle School did not survive. 2 of the walls are completely gone tonight. And this evening, we are embedded with search and rescue teams as they now go door to door looking for people who might have tried to ride out this hurricane. Everywhere you look here, trees on top of homes. This hurricane has been deadly, and the storm is still on the move tonight across North Carolina, Virginia, as it moves right up the coast. But we're going to begin here tonight with what we witnessed just moments ago, flying over a decimated Mexico Beach.
Tonight, this scene is unimaginable. The devastation on Mexico Beach as seen from above. Hurricane Michael making landfall at 155 miles per hour. And this is what a strong Category 4 hurricane will do.
It's almost impossible to describe the destruction from Hurricane Michael here on Mexico Beach. There are some buildings still standing, others are completely destroyed.
From the sky, nearly every building we fly over is damaged in some way. The rooftops blown right off of these homes. Entire blocks reduced to splintered piles of debris. This is all that remains of so many homes, with families still waiting to return.
You can see in so many places homes that have been simply swept away. Homes sitting in the middle of streets, clearly swept away by the storm surge.
And there is another view tonight from this drone flying over Mexico Beach. Entire rooftops blocking the streets. The sheer power of Michael, nearly a Category 5 hurricane, ravaging this coastline community.
must repent and turn away from sexual sin, turn away from lies, from witchcraft, from everything. Go back to holiness. Repent and prepare the way.
and reject sin and wickedness. Reject sexual sin, sexual lust. This is the hour. I have seen the Messiah coming. I have seen the Messiah coming. This is the hour to prepare the way for the glorious coming of the Messiah. May those who have ears listen to the voice of the Lord.